Third level is the empowering level. We only got 2 more. We'll get through this quickly. The empowering leader is the one who invests in their team to expand their reach. It's the leader who understands that true power is found in giving it away. It actually requires... Remember what I said about the emerging leader? They needed to get some wins and rally their team to build credibility and get people to follow them, right? So and that comes up into the accomplishing phase where the more momentum they get, more people are going, yeah, this is a person worth following, right? Cool stuff happens around this person, right? All the power and the attention is going in one way. It's a necessary part of the evolution. The toughest part now is giving that up. Because the empowering leader understands now the very thing that I did at the beginning, I now have to give that power away if this is going to continue to grow. And that's why most struggle to make the shift. They are focused, they're still focused on outcomes, but they embrace and embody the belief that they can't do it alone. They move beyond delegation of tasks, and their focus shifts to delegation of power, authority, to set their team free, to reach new levels of performance, new levels of achievement. All right? Some of the characteristics you'll find in an empowering leader. They've moved from achiever to mentor. They probably hear on a regular basis, thank you for being such a great mentor to me. Right? They're known at taking time out of their busy schedule to answer questions, to show someone how it's done, to hear them out when they're having a tough day and help them navigate that, perhaps with a tough situation with a client. You're beginning to hear the language about being a mentor. Very, very different than just being an employer. Okay? The focus has shifted for the empowering leader from doing more, not that results don't matter. So we're not talking, I don't want you to hear either or here. It's not either or, it's both and. It's just for the empowering leader, results and outcomes now are measured differently. Okay? And it's not just about, more profitability or higher sales. It's about how am I developing my leaders? How many leaders are emerging in our organization? It's a very, very different measurement. So they're focused on doing, not just doing more, but becoming more. Are there people evolving along with them? They invest significant amount of time in team growth. And again, the time issue comes in. I don't have time for this, right? And again, if you don't have time for this, you must have time to keep carrying the burden that you're carrying now, right? You guys know the definition of insanity? Have you heard this? It's doing what? Same thing and expecting. We can rhyme it off, right? We know it up here, but man, how do we fall prey to that one time and time again in our lives and businesses, right? The last one characteristic here, I want to be conscious of time. We're going to wrap up rather soon, but they crave feedback. Now, the accomplishing leader craves feedback, but they crave feedback on their performance. How am I doing? Right? And they love getting the feedback from their team, from their manager or their superior, saying you're doing a great job. They feed off of that, right? And again, that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. We could do a lot better in encouraging our people. The word encourage literally means, in the original language, to put courage into someone, to encourage them. We could do a lot more of that in our businesses, right? But sometimes it's hard when we need someone to put courage in us, right? Because as a leader, we take a beating. We carry a lot of stress, right? So it can be tough to give to someone what you desperately need. I get that. But leaders at this level crave feedback, again, from their team about how are we doing in this whole dynamic of growing together? How are we doing in terms of communication and investing in your growth? Do you feel like your career is advancing? Do you feel like your goals are being met? Do you feel like you're becoming more than you are? What is it that you're looking for that we can help serve? It's a very, very different focus. Some of the challenges here is, these leaders are moving from accomplishing to emerging. They have to overcome this team dependence where the team is too heavily dependent on them. And how many here have ever brought on a team member and you tried to get a loyal client to shift over to your team member? Ever tried to do that? Anybody? How easy is that? No. I want to work with you. Like, no, this person's great. They're fan. No. And so you got clients, oftentimes, when you're trying to make this transition, trying to pull you back into the accomplishing phase, right? Some clients you may not be able to phase out. But over time, one has to be looking at how do I move more over to my team, more responsibility. How do I make that shift so that my team and my clients are less dependent on me as a frontline worker? Does that make sense? Okay. Time challenge. Where do you find the time? Yep. You got to make it. You ever notice if something's important to you in your busy life, somehow time appears, if it matters. Yes? How many here take care of yourselves, you exercise regularly? Do you have time for that? Of course you don't. You make time for that because it matters. Right? So you have to have that same mind shift that this matters a lot, and your time will appear. Loss of personal power, or I should say the feeling that one is losing personal power by giving it away. You actually gain more power when you give it away. You gain more influence. You gain more authority. You gain more power. Like the power, it's like it never runs out if you give it away. It actually runs out when you keep it because you're hanging on to it, right? It's a whole concept of giver's gain and the abundance mentality. You'll never run out of it if you're giving it to people. And finally, you got to move from frontline to command central. More and more, you got to find ways, and that's a transition for sure, but to figure out a way to get off the front line of your business as a primary tactician, right, and get into command central where you're now leading your business. And that's a major, major shift. That's that trust in people that's required to empower them to go to that next level, okay? Some growth priorities, the shift of power. We've talked about encouraging your team more and more, right, so investing in them. And by this, I mean, remember star and supporting cast? At the empowering level, it's supporting every cast member to become a star. It's a complete reverse. So now, all of a sudden, the energy is flowing outward to your team, and in many cases, they stop coming to you for questions and answers. They're going to each other. And that's a highly performing, highly engaged team. And can I let you in a little secret? It's awesome when they're going to each other for help. That's one less meeting for you. That's one less phone call. It's one less interruption in your day. That's a highly engaged team. They're performing together, okay? Learning to let go. Relearning leadership, because the first two levels were necessary. Leadership looks different here. Leadership looks really different here. As a matter of fact, I would say that at this phase right here, when we're talking about emerging and accomplishing, this is mostly tactics. It's mostly skill-based. You need to learn some new skills to lead effectively, right? It's more operational, okay? The shift required here, to go from here to here, is not operational, it's adaptive. And it's not skills and tactics, it's doing the hard inner work, oftentimes of facing your own fears, your own demons, your own limitations, and getting some help wherever required from peers, from a coach, from whoever, to help you then overcome those limiting things that are holding you back so that you can truly set your people free to perform, okay? And as I said, doing the heart work is so important. And there's a lot of fear around this. When I say doing the heart work, I'm not talking about sitting around a campfire, holding hands, singing Kumbaya. Although if that's your thing, I won't judge you. Not too much anyway. But it's true. I was telling somebody here this morning, I forget who now, that this year we actually added to our list of services, product offerings, counseling. Now, not just general counseling for the general public. This is counseling for leaders in crisis. You don't know what being in crisis is like, right? But you may know people that have gone through crisis. In addition to all the pressure a business leader faces, they face all the stuff that everybody faces. Marital breakdown, divorce, kid on drugs, an employee who's driving them crazy, they don't know what to do, carrying too heavy a load for too long, and now something just broke inside them. Right? Depression, overload, addiction, right? Trying to find an answer in a bottle or some drugs, whatever the case may be. We see it all the time. And as a leader, as a coach, I would hear these conversations constantly and do everything I can to support and encourage and, direct them to get the additional help they require if they're in crisis. Now we have that internally. Kathy Lumsden, who's here, wave your hand, Kathy, one of my team members, 20 some plus years she's phenomenal. Because we understand this heart work, oftentimes it takes a crisis for us to be willing to do it. You ever hear the saying that most people aren't ready to change until the pain of staying the way they are is greater than the pain required to transform? In other words, if I stay like this, it's going to cost me more. If I don't do this work, it's going to cost me more than what it's going to cost me to own up, face up, stand up, man up, do whatever it takes, and do this work that I need to do to become the leader that I've been, that I'm meant to become. Okay? All right, sophisticated. Oh my goodness, I could. So by the way, we're actually writing a book on this. This is you're like the second audience ever to hear this done publicly. This has been talked about behind closed doors as we have put our corporate minds together after years and years and years in this world and talking to so many leaders. So feedback is encouraged. We want to hear from you about how this resonates or not, and how we can improve the language around it. But the sophisticated leader, at its very core, is transformational. This is, you move from operational leadership, you evolve into adaptive leadership, because in today's world, you know, what equaled 1 + 1 = 2 yesterday, that doesn't compute anymore. It's changing so fast, so the adaptive style leader is so important. But now we're talking about the transformational leader, who is changing everything about themselves and the business, but in a really meaningful and intentional way. They have earned significant influence. We're not just talking like influence, growing it, we're not talking significant influence. And this could be a manager within an organization that is recognized throughout the organization for their influence. They may not be top dog, but they are looked upon as a mover and a shaker and a thought leader in the company. Or this is someone in their business and industry who's looked to and looked upon and called upon regularly for their input and feedback, because they're helping to give shape on how this thing is evolving. We're talking significant influence. You see the difference there? It extends beyond the walls of your business oftentimes. It starts there, but it often begins to expand beyond that into the community, into an industry, and it's absolutely transformational. So significant influence, we've talked about. They're agents of change. These are folks that, again, they're not just changing things because they're bored. We've all met leaders like that. I remember working for a leader years ago, and like the business was like schizophrenic. And I don't mean that like, but it was like one day you come in and we're doing this today, okay, and everyone's lying and off we go. And the next day goes, we're doing this now, and okay, now we realign of all our resources and we're going in a different direction. I'm not talking about change for change's sake. We're talking about folks that are building incremental, intentional, powerful change that is going to transform the way we do business. And when I say that, when we talk about changing the face of business, we're not just, I don't want you to just think innovation, although innovation is a big part of that, right? There's so much happening so fast, and sometimes a few of us may have the privilege of designing something that's never been heard of before. Years ago, it was Steve Jobs with this thing. How many industries did this change? It changed everything. Do you know that this is the first device since the clock radio where more than one technology was merged into one device and the market actually accepted it? Right? Do you remember the TV VCR combinations? Remember those? I'm dating you now, yep. Do you remember those, right? Couldn't sell them, right? They discontinued them. Nobody was buying them because they were always afraid, well, what if the VCR breaks but the TV's still okay, right? So multiple combinations of several devices in one have been tried many, many, many times. But in history, only the clock radio and this have succeeded. How many devices are in this now? We're talking like revolutionary innovation here. It changed the music industry. It changed the communications industry. Now everyone's got tech neck, you know, because we're always doing this, right? It's actually a thing. Chiropractors and physios talk about tech neck now because they're dealing with these people with bad neck and back problems because of their devices. I mean, it's changed the entire world as we know it. Not all of us will innovate at that level. But often it's taking an existing product or service that people are familiar with, but offering it in a brand new way. In a way that's unique, in a way that's new. Right? Uber did that. They didn't invent the taxi industry, they just changed it. Airbnb didn't change the hotel industry, they just pivoted and offered the same service a different way and are revolutionizing the way that business is done. Right? How could you do that in your business? Innovation, creativity, that artistry side. How can you do things differently than your competitors and offer something really unique in the marketplace? But changing the face of business goes beyond innovation. It's changing the face of how you do business. Far too many leaders buy into the notion that 80 hours a week, working myself to the bone, all for the sake of the cause. Right? You work yourself that hard, both you and the cause will suffer. I'm just going to be straight up with you. At some point, you will run out of steam, you will run out of energy, and both you and the cause will be over, or shipwrecked in some way, or handicapped. And I don't mean to be fatalistic. The statistics prove it. right? And we're picking leaders up on a regular basis in our business that are on the verge of that or right in the middle of it, right? Changing the face of business is how do we work smarter? How do we create an experience not just for our clients? Yeah, we want to be thinking about that. That's where the money comes from. And without the money, without the revenue, all we have is a club, right? A very expensive hobby, right? Well, we need the revenue. But how do we change the experience for our staff? How do we make this a place where they can't wait to come to work? And where if they were given an opportunity to go elsewhere for a pay raise, they would turn it down. And some of you are going to say, not my people. You'd be surprised what people will turn down in terms of monetary reward to work for this kind of leader. Because when they are around this kind of leader, they're becoming more than they are currently. Their potential is being released. That's why they stay engaged. That's why they go above and beyond. That's why they'll say, hey, I could get a job, pay me $30,000 annually more per year, but I will not get what I'm getting here. And it's hard to leave. You create what I call a very sticky culture. It's hard to leave because every time you try to leave, it just pulls you back in because you realize what you've got is so good and that these leaders are so rare. And you want to be around them. They're growing in competence and character. It's not just their skills that are growing. The sophisticated leader has the character to match it. Because your competence may get you there, but only character will help you stay there. Right? We've got all the recent stories in the news about what happens when there's no character and the damage that can be done with the Weinstein stuff, right? We hear about that. Leaders that are highly respected, but they lack the character, and it does so much damage. They're in demand as a mentor. These are people that aren't just recognized as mentor. People are calling them regularly, would you mentor me? Would you mentor me? And it's challenging for them to handle all of that. They're both impactful and inspirational. And they possess what I call deep wisdom. I can't remember the last time I heard the word wisdom used in a business context. Can you? Or even in conversation. How often does the word wisdom come up? We talk about knowledge, but wisdom is the right application of knowledge at the right time. Right? Deep wisdom says, I know what principles are timeless, and I know when an idea or a strategy has served its time, it's time to move on to something else. A wise leader can spot the difference. Some of their challenges, there's so many opportunities for them because of their growing influence. It can pull them in many directions, and in many ways that can help then cause them to lose their edge or lose their impact. Divided attention leads to diluted results, right? So this can happen to a leader at this stage if they're not careful. They can focus more on short-term impact versus long-term transformation. They can get locked into just how does this apply to my immediate context, and are not thinking about what they've got inside them and how it could impact a much larger audience. They can get trapped in the business as a result. So their genius is serving the business well, but it's trapped when it's meant for more, right? It's meant for a larger group. And their genius gets trapped. And when I talk about their genius, I'm not just talking about their intellect, right? I'm talking about their genius in the way that they manage people, their genius in terms of how they see the future, their genius in how they revolutionize what is become so ordinary for so many people. There's so much genius on so many levels, but that can get trapped within the organization. Their growth priorities is focusing their influence. Where does my influence matter most? And really channeling it in a few directions as opposed to many, so that they can get maximum impact. Staying grounded, because the growing influence can also pull the ego trap back in. And you got to always keep that beast under control, because it can do a lot of damage. Setting their genius free. We're looking at Rhapsody. As a team, we're talking about all the stuff that we've got that can help leaders, but right now it's trapped within our coaches. And they're phenomenal, but we've only got so many coaches. And our dream, ultimately our vision, is to help facilitate over 1 million epic stories and radically transform businesses and families around the world. So we got to figure out a way to get our stuff, right? Got to set it free. Our thinking and our knowledge and our experience. How do we touch more lives? How do we influence more people? And finally, focusing on building legacy. What is going to last after I'm gone? What do I want that to look like? Okay? So all of that to say, what kind of leader are you? What stage do you most resonate with right now? And given what stage you're at, the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? What steps are you going to take to advance to the next stage and to keep evolving? Just before I close, I want to offer you a couple of quick things. I'm going to wrap it up and turn it back over to Bob. What about Bob? One of my favorite movies, by the way. A couple of things that we want to offer you. If you would like to get the slide deck of today's presentation, all I need is your business card. Just make sure you give it to me or to one of the members of my team. Jay, wave your hand. There's Jay, right? There's Kathy again, and here's Kimberly here up at the front. So make sure one of us gets your card, and we'll make sure to email you a PDF version of the slide deck. Also, we have a great 10-minute opportunity assessment. We call it on our website. This is take 10 minutes of your time, answer some questions. It's going to produce a 6-page report. We will follow up with you with a 6-page report on the state of affairs in your business, and also a free consultation with one of our coaches. And we promise you there's never, ever hard selling or pushy behavior. It's all about just helping you understand the data and perhaps some things you might be able to do about it to get better results. 10 minutes of your time, and it could radically impact your decisions for 2018. Okay? So if you'd like to get access to that, then simply write the word yes on your business card and get it to one of us, and we'll know that those are the ones that would like to do the assessment. What kind of leader do you want to be? And who must you fearlessly become in order to be that leader? Everything rises or falls on leadership in your organization. Be one of the great ones. Thank you.